Hey everyone, it's Alan over at Cobblers Plus, and today we got one that we don't see too often, a Nike Air. So, as you can tell, it needs a little bit of attention, or a whole lot of it too. So, come join us, check out what we're going to be doing for these today. Thank you for joining us, everyone. So, like I said, we got something a little uncommon usually for us. I mean, we do work on shoes like these and boots. It's just that they're not as common per se. Obviously, a lot of people that watch our videos, they see a lot of dress shoes, Western boots, work boots, ladies shoes. But, shoes like these, more of a tennis shoe, athletic, sneaker type like this, we just don't get often enough, and majority of the time it's minor repairs. Well, this one we're going to be doing a little bit extra work on it than we see often on something like this. So obviously, as you can tell, this purple here, it's got that little finish there. It's kind of a molding there, but it's starting to rot. It's just falling apart in chunks all around, and it's not great. Right here, the gentleman used some glue, feels like super glue almost, and it's just falling apart in general. And the person who brought these in, he works at a outdoor store anyways, so he works with a lot of hiking boots and everything like that, and then he's got a few boots and shoes kind of like this, so he's familiar enough with when it starts to rot. And in particular, he had requested that we use more of a hiker style sole on these, so they're going to be customized Nike Airs, which is going to be great. But for now, we got to break these down, and breaking them down isn't really anything major, but see how easily that comes off. That's one of the things I like about some of these shoes and boots like this. They come off easily. Look at that. Look at that, just by hand. Just had to get it started with the pliers, but that sole is pretty much reusable still. In other words, I mean, it's got a little bit of wear, but we ain't gonna be using that. But overall, it's time to peel up the rest of this. This foam's gonna be just a little bit harder just because it's thicker, but even that's coming off fairly easily. Ugh. And I don't want to use solvents as much as I can on this because it's going to damage the nubuck. These are a nubuck upper. A lot of times we see with these athletic style shoes like this, with these sneakers, they may say that they're leather or claim that they're leather, but a lot of times it's actually either not leather or it's such a cheap quality leather with such a thick coating, it might as well not be leather either. But these ones are actually a nubuck, which is pretty nice to work on. I mean, look at that midsole. But we're replacing that for this gentleman too. He requested to have that replaced and everything as well. And then, oh, thank you, this thing's not falling apart in chunks on me, at least not yet. That was the thing I was most concerned about, was this. Yep, see right there, it's starting to rip. There we go. Man, this thing just really loves coming apart. There we go. Then I'll take apart the other one. It's going to be quick and easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, not necessarily to our sander, but my wire brush over here, and just kind of chip away at it. I do have to take off a little bit more than what this line is, because what we're going to do, instead of putting a new molding on in such a manner, I've got here, I was out of stock of this, so I had to get this sent over to me yesterday. I'm going to be putting on some Rand, like that there. Rand in general is one of those things that you see most often used around hiking or rock climbing shoes. You don't see it too much in any other type of footwear, but that's what we're going to do. Again, like I had mentioned, for this gentleman, he works in an outdoor store, so he's familiar enough with Rand, so he had requested that we put some Rand around like this. all the way around. This is just roughly what it's gonna look like. Not completely, but something like that there. Looks very familiar, doesn't it? Looks a lot like the stuff that they use on, what are those things called? The white shoes. Cassie, what are those white shoes? All-Star? I forgot. Comment down below if you remember what they are, but they have a trim around just like this, and I get them in here every now and then. I just had one in last week for an orthopedic lift, which is kind of weird, but same stuff pretty much. Just a little bit of higher grade rubber, it seems like. But I'm going to go ahead and take apart the other one and get these kind of lined up to see where I want it to sit, and then we'll start brushing everything down. So we'll see you back here in just Alright everyone, so I'll start cleaning this up. I gotta clean these strips with some thinner, but I'll kind of explain what I was doing. First thing you saw me do, I was cleaning off these edges and kind of roughing it up, getting some of that old glue out, roughing up these purple areas here because they are kind of smooth in some of the spots. And then I took these rands here and I ran them through the sander because the factory finish on them is kind of smooth, and just as a precaution I took a little chunk and sanded one half of it and the other half I left just to make sure everything, see how it reacts, because sometimes us cobblers we have a reaction to just sand everything. That's kind of how it goes. You just sand it usually, at least good cobblers. But that's kind of an old school method. These days with the different types of materials changing, sometimes some companies will add a special coating on there, a primer of some sort, and we see that a lot more. Like if you've ever watched my videos with the Christian Louboutin soles, like these Mirror Casellis, these have a primer on them, so you can't sand them. If you sand them, they won't adhere properly and just peel up very quickly, and so that's not a good thing. And I just want to make sure nothing has changed on these, because sometimes the company that manufactured this will change the composition of a material on a sole or whatever it may be, and then all of a sudden we don't know about it because the suppliers or distributors don't know either. And I'm just going to clean up these little plastic areas a little bit here too, because again, same story. We're cleaning it up with some thinner because we're trying to remove any potential oils or whatever may be on there. But now, since it's cleaned up, any oils off the fingers are off. And this is kind of the messy part here. I honestly hate gluing strips. I could be a little bit more cautious about it, but yeah, why bother? Don't gotta be cautious. It's been a long day. I've been all over the place and stuff, and yeah, always something coming up, honestly. So I gotta make sure I'm working as quickly as I can some days, and I'd rather make sure that it's done right. But if it means that I'm taking a shortcut by keeping my work area a little bit messy, that's why I put this little board down here, because I'll just replace it. I've got a bunch of these boards. I don't even remember where I got them from. Ended up, I think, for free somehow. So they got all messy. That's okay with me. Place that up here. Let's do the shoes so I'm not wasting your time too much with the gluing aspect of it. Now I did do the taping, and I did it because of this. Oh, dang. I just filled up my glue pot, and you can see all of this here. I got the kids in the back right there, and it's dripping all over the floor. That's why cobblers can't have nice things a lot of times. If we wear nice things to work, get glue or dye all over, or polish or something. Cobblers can't have nice things. Although I do have some nice shoes up front, and I only wear them on Saturdays when I'm not technically supposed to be doing work on the back. It's more of different types of works up front and stuff, but I still work in the back regardless. So right now we're just going to glue this up. I'm going to put a single coat on all the parts that are not leather, which means that purple basically only, and the rands that we're putting on. But all this nubuck, which that's what this is, it's a nubuck leather, I'm going to put a second coat on there because the first coat is going to absorb into the leather and act as a primer for us. So I want to make sure we get that second coat, because the second one is going to act as our binding layer. And then too much glue on the parts that are synthetic, like the purple area or the rand, too much of that can be a bad thing as well. Yeah, I know we have everyone here today, so it's a little noisy in the back, all the kids screaming and yelling all the time. But anyways, at this point, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to put a second coat onto the nubuck area. The rand has glue, the purple area has a single coat, at least on the other shoe. And then when it's time to stick it, I'll be back here again, because I'll show you here real quick. The ends, the end of one is usually kind of rounded like that, the rands, so we want to cut it as straight as possible. See right there, cut it, and that's something we want to make sure we do during the adhesion process, or the sticking process, in other words, while we're sticking it onto the shoe. But gives you an idea. So I'll see you guys back in just a little bit when it's time to put the rand on. I got to put it on so that it cures overnight. And sometimes these rands do need a little more time than overnight, just as a precaution. I know some of you cobblers are going to be like, well, if you trust your glue. Cobblers that are watching, I use Jet Set. I trust it. I've used Masters and Barge, and I prefer Jet Set. I honestly think adhesives react differently in different areas. Like Colorado, it seems like more cobblers use Jet Set. Not necessarily due to any kind of cost or anything. It just seems to bind a little bit better out here. I've noticed on the East Coast, a lot more people tend to use Barge, and then in the more humid environments and stuff that's a little bit warmer, people tend to use either Masters, Renya if they decide to be a little bit on the fancier side, and some Barges as well. This is to most of the cobblers or the people who understand what I'm talking about, I guess. But before I keep blabbering on, I'll see you back there in just a little bit. Alright everyone, so these have had enough time to kind of cure. They're just a little bit tacky. That tends to happen, and that's what we want anyways. So what I'm going to do is, because these ends are kind of rounded, I'm going to take one end. I'm going to use this knife here. I think it's a Japanese design from what I understand. A lot of the Japanese shoemakers use these. They're very cool. It wasn't very expensive. Some of those guys have some really nice ones from what I understand. Maybe one of these days I'll own one of the nicer ones. But it's kind of like the perfect length for me just to chop like that. There we go. Toss that little sliver. And typically we usually heat stuff up, but because I want to make sure I get this on here as perfectly as possible, let me readjust the camera a little bit. I am not going to heat it up. Now the connecting point, I want it to be on the leather itself, because that's usually where it works best. And also, I should take the tape off at this point actually, because otherwise if I get tape underneath, it's going to be a little bit more of a pain to remove it. But I'm not heating it up because that way it's easier to readjust if I need to, so that I can pull off a small chunk or something, or do whatever to reposition it. Once it's on there, I'm going to take my heat gun over here. Taking off the tape while I wasn't recording, not waste your time, but I'll take the heat gun afterwards and heat it up so that it activates the adhesive very well, and stick it all together. Now, I may have to touch up some little sections here and there, but that's kind of normal to do so, to just touch it up. But for the bulk of it, I have to stick right now, let it cure overnight, and you know, hopefully it cures overnight. But sometimes, again, these take a little more than just overnight, and then I'll be able to touch up whatever may need it. So I can position it on my leg just to be a little bit safer. It's a very slow thing to do, especially if you want it to be just right. Let's see. Yeah, I've been working on getting around to these for a little while, and there's another pair this gentleman had brought in I'm also doing a video on, and it's all just taken so much longer than I had hoped for. The only reason why some of these jobs take longer to do is because I'm the one doing them. Like this, for example, I wouldn't be able to hand this off to any of our guys to just up and do, because unfortunately here in Colorado, most of our cobblers are more familiar with just grab and go type of work, things that we're more familiar with, like work boots and some Western boots and dress shoes, which are more common. Sometimes they also take a little more time on those shoes and boots, but everyone's a little more familiar with them, so they're more comfortable with doing them. Where something like this, however, is not something that anybody's really comfortable with. So, you know, that's why I end up with this kind of stuff a lot of times. Now, this connecting point. I want to try to get it as close as possible to connect, but obviously it doesn't always work out the way we would hope. So let's see if this will work on the first try. I think I got it. All right, see, there's just a little bit there. And then afterwards, right where it connects, right here, just readjust it a little bit. This spot right here underneath is going to get kind of covered up anyways, so that's fine there. I might even cut some of that out and sand it anyways, because it's not going to fold over. There'll just be a weird lump. But my main concern is around the edges. And then right here at that seam, I'm going to put a little bit of an adhesive in afterwards. I'll probably do that a little later on after the after all this cures properly. And that's what I want to make sure is done first. Otherwise, if I end up needing to readjust it, that other adhesive that I'm going to use to kind of connect that area is going to be a little bit too strong, and I may potentially end up ripping the rand, and I don't want that. So we're going to make a little noise. Make sure it's warm. Do a section at a time here. Okay. And I only want to do a section at a time, otherwise if I heat it all up at once, then by the time I get around to that section and maybe another section, it may be cooled off. So just want to do a little bit at a time. And by the way, have you guys ever noticed this thing isn't squeaking no more? Because of this stuff. The gentleman who watches my channel, thank you. You dropped this off for me. Works phenomenally. Doesn't squeak. Because I always try to keep this thing oiled up and everything, but you know, sometimes you can only do so much and eventually it just wears out anyways. We'll see. This stuff will last a good while. Typically if I use like WD-40 or something else, it lasts a good while, but then it starts giving out and it's like, I can't get around to clean it, because you got to clean it and then re-oil it, and it's hopefully this stuff lasts a while. Thank you, good sir, for dropping that off. I definitely appreciate that. Now, after I get majority of this rand kind of glued down, you see all these little folds and ridges in the back here of the heel. Same thing is going to occur around the toe area. But we are going to notch it and put little cuts and everything in to try to lay it down a little bit flatter. I mean, I'm not just going to leave it folded like that, but my main key concern is, again, that section at the top. And it just is very important to make sure that area is secured nicely. However, right here at the toe, see how much that chunk there is sticking up? I am going to take my razor and just split it. Otherwise, sometimes those folds, they kind of get a little tricky, and so it's easier to go like that, because it forces the material way too much to try to come unglued or something. And it's just to make sure it doesn't apply too much tension at this top area, well, bottom from what you're looking at, but this top right here, because it just pulls on it too hard. So now we've got that little notch there, and it's not going to pull on it. And then later on, once it's kind of cured up the top here, I'm going to get inside here, get some glue there, and try to lay this out so that any parts that are sticking up afterwards, I could actually trim them up. And then once we take it to the sander, then we can really even things out nicely to get prepared for that midsole. So at this point, I'm done at this stage. It's kind of tacky there in the middle. Just a little bit, because that adhesive that they use from factories, I don't know what it is. A lot of companies use almost identical adhesive, and it drives me nuts. I don't like it. I really don't like it. It's too sticky, even after it's been serving its purpose. But anyways, at this point, we're kind of done for now. Hope you enjoyed it at the moment. If you have been enjoying so far, give a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Otherwise, I'm going to finish out this one real quick, and then we'll be back here when it's time to get ready for the midsole and getting everything prepared for that midsole. So we'll see you back a little bit later. Alright everyone, so I've got everything sanded out around here. All those little areas, like I said, I cut them out a little bit, and I put a little bit of a filler in to make sure that it adheres right. Same thing on the back end. That way there's no big lumps or anything sticking out. I just pulled this out of the oven, so I got to be a little quick and stick it onto the bottom here. Now, typically most things I like to stick on the press, but this is obviously a softer crepe when it's warm, and so what happens is if that press applies just a little too much pressure, and it leaves indentations and makes this sole denser. So we're just going to hammer it. Now after this sits and cures overnight, and gets into position properly, because these materials, usually when they heat up, they either expand or they shrink a little bit, and they kind of have to try to go back into their shape after they're cooled off. Then I'll be able to examine it a little bit closer and see if there's any areas I might need to touch up with an adhesive, a different one, and press it down and let it bind and cure. So at this stage, I'm pretty much done. I'm not going to cut it again, because I don't want to risk peeling it or anything during the cutting process. So that's it for today, and when it's time to continue on, we'll see you back in just a few. All right, everyone, so you saw me sanding and everything like that. At this stage, we're pretty much done. I have to kind of let these cure. These have been taking me a lot longer than I expected. We had a bunch of stuff going on here constantly at the shop. It was one dilemma after another, but just to give you an idea, so we've got the sole on here. The midsole, we did put a little bit more of a wedge on the back of the heel here, and we have to angle it because these heels on this particular sole here has that little lip that I may have mentioned, that you want to make sure it's kind of angled right, otherwise it bulges out way too much and it's going to be a mess. So at this point it is drying, because I put on this KG boot guard here just around the very corner here at that seam, and then once it's all dry and cure, I can do a final sanding here real quick. And obviously you can tell that that midsole is darker right now because of that KG boot guard. It comes in a black or a brown color, but once it's all dry, then I can again sand it down and it brings back that lighter colored blue very easily. But for now, it is going to stay a little bit on the darker side. There are a few spots that I still need to sand out just a little bit. I don't know if the camera will catch it just right there, but I really want to make sure to get that KG boot guard on so it dries overnight, and then tomorrow morning I can finish them out and do some final shots. But at this point, that's kind of it. There's just a little bit of minor cleaning here and there, and we're done. In other words, so I'll have pictures taken once it's all finished out for you, and you can check those out at the end. But in the meantime, if you'd like to give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Again, this video had been a little bit choppy because of so much going on and everything, but definitely appreciate that thumbs up, because YouTube's algorithm definitely helps grow our channel significantly. I appreciate everybody that has subscribed. We hit 6,000, currently over 6,000 from the time of me recording this right now, which is awesome. I'd like to thank all of you who are part of the channel and have been watching. All the people that are new to the channel, welcome. Hope you're enjoying it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. If they are smaller questions or comments, please. It is very, very hard for me to keep up with a lot of comments as the channel grows. It is getting harder and harder, I've noticed. But if you have a more detailed question or price estimate or anything like that, first check out our website, CobblersPlusCO. If you don't see whatever you are looking for to get done to your shoes or boots or whatever other goods, then message us and we would happily give you an estimate on it. Pictures always help, or if you're here locally in the Denver area, in person is above all the best to be able to see the items themselves. But otherwise, at the very least, some pictures will definitely help significantly. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Again, make sure to subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, and check out the images at the very end and see what it looks like once it's all done.